Hmm? Ah! This is the Good Omens podcast on TV Podcast Industries in association with Podcastica, and we're back for the final time for Good Omens Season 3.
You were at a bookshop for centuries. You really loved your bookshop. And then you just walked away.
What happened here?
Well, you tell me. Uriel was meant to take over the place. They were here for a few weeks and then closed the door.
I needed Muriel. I needed someone to work with me in heaven who was nice.
Oh.
But that's not what I meant. What I meant was what happened here. I've been gone for years. I mean, the place is a bit dusty, yes, but no windows broken. Nothing's been taken. No rodent problem. Expect rats, wouldn't you?
You weren't here. I wasn't going to lose this place as well.
Welcome back, fellow angels and demons, to the Good Omens podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're back talking about Good Omens for the final time with the movie replacement for the final season of Good Omens. I am one of your hosts, Derek, and I am joined by my own ineffable husband, John.
Hello there, fellow angels and demons. I am your other host, John. Yes, great to be back in the world of Good Omens and that lovely eccentricity that we get with the writings of Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, of course. Great stuff to be getting into this final, as Derek said, season 3, the final. But it is kind of a short movie.
It is.
Instead.
Yes, it is. Do you remember when we did our coverage of season 2, John, the 6-episode season that we chatted about, and we said towards the end of it, by the time season 3 arrives, we will finally be ineffable husbands, because we were only engaged at the time, John, and we are officially.
We are, yes.
Officially ineffable husbands. Married, finally.
Exactly.
It's weird to say that after 2 years of marriage now, but that's how long it takes to.
It is, and it's a shame we don't have 6 episodes to keep hammering that home as well. Yeah. But instead, we do have this final movie of Good Omens.
Absolutely, yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because the whole premise that it was sold on to Amazon when season 1 was such a success, there was no book follow up to the Good Omens book by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. They sold a 2-season arc effectively, and the second season was all about placing the characters where Gaiman wanted to place them for the third season. Then everything happened. Gaiman stepped away from the project and left them with a template that they had to use, and Prime Video decided to only bet on one episode of a show, gave them a little bit more time, gave them about an hour and 20 minutes, gave them a little bit more time to make it and adjust the writing that was there for the third season. But apparently the second season of the show was all just a staging season, was all about just moving the pieces in place for this final arc of the show that would have been 6 episodes telling the story of the second coming that we now know was the idea for this. So there's definitely some joins that we can talk about as we discuss through our major points from the episode. But yeah, it is a real shame that we didn't get that arc of the show that was expected.
Yeah, definitely. I would have loved to have seen this on 6 episodes of for a season 3. Yeah. I think I'm not entirely sure whether it's justified just to have a final movie, but at least we've got something.
It's an ending.
It's an ending.
Yeah.
It's something. Other properties that are connected to Neil Gaiman maybe haven't been quite so lucky in that regard.
Where's the Nancy Boys, yeah.
You know, around Nancy Boys and...
Made by Prime Video as well, and it's all shelved. It was made about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So we expect
and
never to see.
And it's interesting because I hardly see anything to do with this issue around Neil Gaiman show up at all. I see everything else, but nothing at all around what's supposed to have happened or whether anything is happening at all. So anyway, I think we leave it there and we get on with our coverage of this final movie.
Yes, let's discuss what we actually got rather than speculating too much about what we could have possibly gotten. But we know there is an arc there that definitely could have been told over 6 episodes or in a new book potentially. That would have been kind of cool. But we would love you to be in contact with us. Let us know what you thought of the show. This is our only podcast about it, of course, because we're not covering a season. We're just covering the Good Omens season 3 movie. But if you want to email us, you can email us as always to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/tvpodcastindustries. You can also join us on Discord now at the details in the show notes for this very episode. You can join us over there to chat about all the shows that we're covering. We're coming up on our 1000th episode of TV Podcast Industries with all of the shows that entails over the course of the last 11 years. So we would love if you join us for a different show now that Good Omens is completing its run.
Yes, and of course you can subscribe to the podcast over on our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can join any angelic or demonic podcast catcher of your choice.
Absolutely.
But with that, let us get into our spoiler-filled discussion of Good Omens, the finale.
Mm-hmm.
Derek, what are some of the episode details?
Well, of course, the show is based on characters created for the novel Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. The teleplay for the show is delivered by Michael Marshall Smith, Peter Atkins, and Neil Gaiman. Now, we know obviously a lot about Neil Gaiman because we talked about him on our Sandman podcast and the Good Omens podcast in the past. But Michael is a sci-fi and suspense writer. He writes many, many novels, not very many TV shows, interestingly. Peter Atkins is the really interesting one for me because he's a horror movie writer who wrote most of Wishmaster, the set of movies. He also wrote Hellraiser 2, which is one of my favourite horror movies of all time, Hellraiser 3 and Hellraiser 4. He's from Liverpool and was a part of a theatre group with Clive Barker and Doug Pinhead Bradley. So if you're a fan of Hellraiser, Peter Atkins is the one you got to thank for that franchise, along with, of course, Clive Barker, who wrote the original book as well. So how interesting is that they bring on board them? Yeah.
But there is a really lovely seam in British writing that is kind of Clive Barker and obviously Peter Atkins.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But also like Neil Gaiman, I think, and of course Alan Moore. I'd probably put sort of John Wyndham in there. He's a bit earlier maybe, but that really kind of, it's just a really nice seam of, English literature for me, where it's dealing with the new world, or it's looking back but trying to look forward, or it's a warning. It's very much in the bleak sense of British sci-fi and fantasy and dystopia, but it's really, really cool. And so, that's kind of really interesting.
Absolutely. And in movies, we've seen people like Danny Boyle with his return to the 28 Days Later franchise and how he's bringing in that absolute sense of Britishness and darkness and, things you just don't get outside of those areas of writing. I think you're absolutely right. There's something very special and unique about British sci-fi, British horror and British comedy that goes to places that a lot of other countries don't go to.
Well, that's it. And I think this is encapsulated here. I think I mean that. I think it's also the comedy, which can be dark.
Absolutely.
It can also be incredibly light or slightly weird and eccentric.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the same with kind of the fantasy, the sci-fi, and so on. So it's really, really interesting. That kind of time, I think. Certainly post-war, but probably up till
that 80s, 90s
maybe
kind of group.
Mid to late 90s. That group is, I find really, really interesting.
Absolutely. Unfortunately for this episode, we don't have our wonderful Doug McKinnon as the director. He was instrumental in the show throughout the first 2 seasons, but did move away from the project to move on to other projects. He had lots of other things on the go. But the new director for the show is someone that we definitely know on our podcast here, Rachel Talalay. This is her first Good Omens episode, but she did direct David Tennant previously in his return to Doctor Who and the Star Beast. And she also directed 7 episodes of Doctor Who before that. So we definitely know her name from those times she's appeared on screen when we've watched Doctor Who. Also directed multiple episodes of shows that we've covered here in TV Podcast Industries as well. So it's very cool to have a great replacement in Rachel Talalay as the director of the show here.
Excellent stuff, yeah.
But John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Good Omens, the finale?
Sure. Previously on Good Omens Season 2, Aziraphale leaves Earth and Crowley to go to work for Heaven, where the Metatron informs him that his task, for which he has the perfect skill set, will be to enact the Second Coming. Now, Aziraphale's extensive checklist for the Second Coming is finally complete, and he assigns Sandalphon to watch the resurrected Jesus and provide guidance to him before his return to Earth. Heaven is thrown into chaos, however, and disorder when the Metatron disappears, along with the Book of Life. While the Seraphim are distracted, Jesus goes off to Earth on his own to connect with humanity. Aziraphale needs help to find Jesus and returns to Whitby Street in Soho, where he finds the former demon Crowley, homeless after losing his Bentley to gangster Brian Cameron in a game of chance. While Jesus learns a card trick from Harry the Fish to help him connect with humanity, Aziraphale wins the Bentley back from the gangster. Crowley and Aziraphale take the card to the furthest reaches of the universe, trying to locate the missing deity, and more of the angels disappear. Meanwhile, Uriel confronts Michael. Michael reveals that she is responsible for the disappearances. Angered that Aziraphale's version of the Second Coming is planned to bring world peace, Michael feels that she was the only one competent enough to enact the apocalypse. She burns Uriel's page from the Book of Life, thus erasing her from existence. Michael begins destroying the Book of Life. Crowley and Aziraphale find her, and Aziraphale forgives her. Overcome by guilt, Michael burns her own page. With that, both of them are the only beings left in existence in the bookshop, aside from God and Satan. Crowley and Aziraphale ask God to create another universe without angels, demons, heaven, hell, Satan, or God, where humans have free will. God erases the universe completely, along with Crowley and Aziraphale. In another universe, Professor Anthony Crowley meets bookseller Asa Fell, who invites him to dinner. 20 years later, Fell and Crowley are married and live together in a cottage in the South Downs. Fell wonders if there's anything beyond the universe, and Crowley dismisses the idea because he has everything he ever wanted.
Aww. And if the show had one thing to accomplish, it was to give a good ending to these two characters.
Absolutely. I think always in Good Omens, the sentiment has been really just great.
Yeah.
And I think it really comes fully here. And it's about the power of humanity to actually manifest their own destiny.
Well, absolutely.
And I think that ending really illustrates that. That's not to say you can't be spiritual. It's not to say you can't believe in something or whatever.
Well,
just to put it out there. But I think there is this notion of grasping your own reality and world in order to make the best of it. And I think I just like how this plays out over the course of this kind of mini movie.
Absolutely.
In a sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just think the concept of what they achieve here is just so subversive. The fact that an angel and a demon get together to ask a god to destroy one universe and create a universe where none of them actually exist. It's just so, it's just so subversive. It's
Absolutely.
A great choice, isn't it? You know, it's something that in, I think Dogma did something similar with the Kevin Smith's movie where they go, you genuinely know that God exists and you're telling people he doesn't exist, showing that the two angels are trying to pervert humans to a different belief they're trying to use, even though they know something exists, they're trying to change it and pervert it. So I love the concept here in the show. Anyway, let's get on to our top 5 moments. Do you remember back again, John? It's been a couple of years. On Good Omens, we have the signs of the apocalypse are our points. So our first sign of the apocalypse, it's the Second Coming. And it'll be bringing total peace is our first point. I really love this setup at the beginning. At the end of last season, we saw Aziraphale rising to heaven and being given his plan by the Metatron that the Second Coming is on its way. First season was dealing with the arrival of the Antichrist. This season is dealing with the return of Jesus. And Aziraphale has decided to make a different plan. He's planned everything out to change the course of what's expected, and that he wants total peace on earth. He wants this idea that everybody will have universal happiness by the return of Jesus. Wouldn't that just be a good plan?
Definitely. Like, it's, again, you mentioned about being subversive, but even right at the start of it, there is this angel in Aziraphale. It's not that he's being subversive. He's just like, I think he says, I want something more upbeat. I want joy unbounded, happiness. He has this different idea about the second coming. Yeah. Because we have Jesus meeting Aziraphale, and he says, you've got a mortal body now to tell humans it's the end of days, I think one of the other angels says. And you see here the tension, and you see Aziraphale fighting this notion that it has to be the apocalypse. It's got to be, the end of everything. He's wanting this lighter, more upbeat, more joyful, apocalypse in a sense. And it's like, well, I'm certainly down for that. I do like as well, again, it's one of those lovely little elements, I think, to how these stories are told, where you just have Aziraphale in heaven solving the logistics of the second coming. I'm not entirely sure where else you would have that notion of, you have Muriel telling the assembled angels, the committee, that Jesus is up and awake, first of all. Archangel Sandalphon will meet Jesus on the tarmac after we've sorted out the plane and how he materializes there. Uriel and Michael will meet you at the UN, and you'll give your address, which is about half an hour, saying that it's the end of days. And it's like, effectively the apocalypse, but it's been written by Aziraphale, so of course it's not about the apocalypse or the coming of the apocalypse. Yeah. It is about peace, love, happiness, joy, and a more upbeat second coming. Exactly. And I just thought this
universal
was
happiness for everybody. All wars are over because Jesus has spoken to everybody here.
So this is just really nice.
I think, I know when the original book was written, and many people have mentioned it before, the real Python-esque quality, real similar style to Monty Python in their writings, in the writing here in Good Omens. And I love the idea, and it's very, very emblematic of Monty Python, that in order to delay the second coming and deliver the second coming that he wants, which is universal happiness, that of course Aziraphale has created an endless, almost checklist of items that everybody must complete and run around and complete this checklist before they can have the second coming. So you get this idea that it's been years, even though when they left at the end of last season, the Metatron was telling Aziraphale that the second coming is literally on its way, but he's been able to delay it by creating these excessive lists for everybody.
I think it's also as well that, Jesus or Joshua, son of Joseph, is played absolutely perfectly in my mind by Bilal Hassner. Yep. Just this sense of confusion and innocence and naivety here. But also one of kindness.
Yes.
But I just like the fact he's like, well, where is everyone? Can I speak with my mum? What about the angel Gabriel or the red-haired one? He seemed nice and showed me all the cities of the earth. And I just really enjoyed how he's kind of like, what's happened here?
And that's the temptation in the desert as well. So,
exactly.
So he remembers Crowley as being the one that that tempted him in the desert and being very nice about it. So he almost fell for the temptation, if anybody knows the story from the Bible. And he remembers Gabriel as talking about himself quite a lot and not providing very much comfort for the man that went off and got crucified the following day, which I love as well.
But that's it. And it's even, the explanation to him is, well, you were previously a third part of the Godhead. Now you're mortal, and you've got to inform the humans of the second coming, effectively.
Yeah.
So this is like, I just think this is a really nice sort of reintroduction of all these characters. at least in heaven. I think that, again, it's the subversiveness of Aziraphale trying to change the second coming.
Yeah.
And of course, not everyone is on board with
Exactly.
that.
And that's this, not only is the setup, it is the fundamental, linchpin for the entire story. The fact that Aziraphale wants to change the second coming into this idea of universal happiness is the reason why it all falls apart, basically. In the same way as in the first Good Omens, there are many people on both sides in heaven and hell that want the apocalypse to happen, and they're expecting it. They finally think they can get to rest and they won't have to be subservient to humans anymore. In the same way, here we have the second coming, and there's some members of the seraphim that believe finally it's our time to no longer be subservient to humans. So yeah, we see how that plays out as the episode goes on. We're going to talk a little bit more about Jesus though, John. Let's move on to our second sign of the apocalypse, because Jesus goes it alone in the moment when the Metatron disappears and the Book of Life disappears. Jesus just decides, well, I'm just going to go over to that lift over there, press the Earth button and arrive on Earth and decide what I'll do from there, basically. I'm good at people. I'm sure I can sort everything out for myself. And he quite quickly meets up with Crowley. He arrives into the one set that they have for this movie, which is our location for the last season as well, Wickham Street, in Soho, and finds Crowley has been sleeping out. He's very, very drunk, or at least experiencing his hangover. He's not actually drunk, I suppose. He's experiencing his hangover in a laneway. And there's a great little bit of confusion here with Jesus, who asks Crowley, having recognized him, for some advice on how he is to deal with humans in this time period, because he realizes he's 2,000 years on from when he was around last time. There's planes flying overhead, there's lots and lots of sounds that he's never seen before. So he's found Crowley, asks Crowley for advice, and Crowley has just experienced once again being ripped off for his Bentley by the local gangster, and starts talking to him about find the lady, and if you find the lady, then you'll be able to succeed. And he's talking about a card game, but Jesus thinks he's giving him some actual I guess a parable about how we should live on Earth, because that's how Jesus talks all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the find the lady and the 3 cards trick, effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this whole thing of Jesus kind of in the commotion of everything that's going down in heaven, which is a lot. I do like that. It's like the Book of Life has disappeared. Metatron has been effectively disintegrated. He's vanished from the universe, technically. But also then you have Aziraphale saying, and the third thing is that suddenly Jesus has been lost. And Archangel Sandalphon is demoted from Archangel to Junior Recording Angel Sandalphon. Yes. So there's these 3 things lost that Aziraphale must rectify. But as you say, in the commotion, it's ultimately that Jesus has calmly taken the lift to Earth, met with Crowley, and he gets this random bit of advice that at least points him in a direction to try and connect with humanity.
Yeah. And I love this. Again, this is just speaking to, people reading passages of the Bible without any context and turning it into their own context and applying it to their own lives. You have Jesus here applying 3-card Monty or the Hidden Queen to his own life, taking some advice out of it and then going off to search for the Queen. And I love the first person that he meets up with is Mrs. Sandwich, who is a lady of the night, or at least organizes.
Everything's online
used
now.
to organize
Everything's
it,
online.
and asks her to introduce him to a queen. And yeah, she says, "Oh, sorry, love, everything's online now. I used to be able to do that for you." And then he bumps into Harry the fish. Interesting that, of course, Jesus, who always had followers that were fishermen, bumps into Harry the fish, who teaches him all about 3-card Monty.
Yeah. So I like how this drunken advice from Crowley ultimately leads Jesus to meet with Harry Fish, who kind of shows him the card game around the 3 cards and to find the lady. And Harry Fish is like, "Well, who are you?" And he says, "Joshua." And he says, "Bless you." And Jesus comes back with, "No, bless you." But he will teach Jesus to find the lady in the cards. The interesting Harry the Fish is Mark Addy, and Finding the Lady is called the Three-Card Monty, of which it's like the full Monty, of which Mark Addy was in that movie, as one of the men made redundant from the coal mines, or the steelworks. Can't remember now which. Yeah,
I think it's coal mines. Yeah. And he says, I used to do the Monty with a team of guys.
Yes, exactly.
Nice
so it's a nice little touch there. But I like how they kind of connect up together. It's a nice little kind of relationship and partnership where ultimately you have Jesus trying to preach to humanity and to pull out all the good stuff. I also like the fact that Jesus' first moment on earth, he is chatting with someone on Wickber Street who gives him a cheese toasty.
Absolutely.
And I like all these just kind of little touches ultimately that happen over the course of this. And I even though we get a very short amount of time, I feel, with Jesus and Harry the Fish, you get the sense of their connection, which is good. And this is where you suddenly realize how, a 6 episodes really would have helped make this more of a thing.
Without a doubt. Yeah, there's a great moment, like, that all has to be rushed really quickly. Jesus comes to the realization of how to do the 3-card Monty trick out of nowhere, really. He's not getting it right, and then he has the discussion with Harry, and then suddenly he gets it right because he's going, right, well, this just allows me to connect with people properly. Then they get down to the street, down to Wickber Street, and bring everybody around them, and Jesus does what would be the 2 loaves and 3 fishes, but this time with pizza.
With pizza.
The unending box of pizza, which I think is cool. But not only that, he's there to solve and help people with their issues as well. He's there to provide a loving ear and help and guidance to the people around him. It's a lovely moment. He talks to Mrs. Sandwich and tells her that, I know your sister may have said she disowned you in the past, but she wants you to come back to her. Your mom's ill. She needs you to go back to Yorkshire, go back to Bridlington, to your family. So that's really lovely. And then he starts talking to the other people around him. The person that gave him the sandwich was unfortunately doesn't have a name in the show, but has been there since season 2. It's Mutt's Space, played by Andrew O'Neill, and they're told effectively that their space took the wrong medication and died. They didn't take their own life, and that's a moment of respite for them that gives them the opportunity to mourn properly. So all of these things that Jesus does, even the conversation that he has with Harry about his son, all of these things done to help out people, give them some form of closure on things in their life, would have worked so much better if it had been over an episode or 2. And here it just feels like they have a great actor here doing 2 or 3 minutes of something that should have stretched over a few episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the other great thing though here is it does capture it, and I think, but like you say, it's a shame there wasn't more time spent with these characters, because it's just such a great pitter-patter between them. I think, you have Jesus saying, the lady, he kind of gets it, is finding people, peace and happiness and love. Yeah. He suddenly kind of gets it, and then he's preaching to the masses with Harry Fish, and he's kind of saying, speak to them, but not as dark as you said. And you just have Jesus flippantly saying, I think that's what got me into trouble last time. So all this stuff is really just kind of nicely done. I think there's even a reference where I think Jesus goes, I think my thing's more stories, parables that I'm kind of better at, rather than trying to do the 3-card Monty. So all these are really just really nice little touches dotted throughout this between these two, and I got the real sense of the connection to the point where when Harry the Fish is taken away by Armageddon, and then followed by Jesus, you get that sense, even though we've been with them for such a short time. And I think that's testament to the 2 actors here, in this role, probably not necessarily knowing it was going to be done as a long movie, but just absolutely wringing the best out of their performances. And it really shows for me in this mini movie, actually. So I really like this, these 2. And of course, again, Jesus's friends are all fishermen, so it is absolutely pertinent that it's Harry the fish.
Absolutely, and I have to say, just the final line that Jesus delivers of, I never really seemed to get much of a go, I just think it's a beautiful final line for the second coming of Jesus, and him being taken away by the apocalypse as well, you know. At least he gave some solace to the people that were around him there before they all got taken away, you know. It's a short time on screen, but I think a really good time. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. Shall we get on to our third sign of the apocalypse?
Absolutely, yes. Crowley's stolen car. And there's one massive reason why we really wanted to talk about this point as its own point, and that's because we have the wonderful Sean Pertwee, friend of the show, back here, this time playing Brian Cameron, the local gangster, who just will do absolutely anything to get his hands on the Bentley, this beautiful car that Crowley's had for the last 70, 80 years.
Yeah, so good to be talking about Sean Pertwee again. Loved his little kind of cameo in essence here. I think Sean Pertwee, I think his daughter as well, I say daughter of the character, Brian Cameron. I like the fact that you've got JC with Jesus Christ, but I think you have Crowley's calling him the old BC in terms of before Christ. Nice little touch. Really good to see Sean Pertwee here, giving his best sort of London gangster. I like the initial thing where you have Crowley again trying to win back the Bentley from him, and you have Crowley flippantly just kind of saying, well, when you've designed star systems, blackjack is a doddle, but ultimately doesn't win it back. And I like that it's Monopoly after they've signed the contract, so it's not really a card game, it's a board game.
Yeah. I love that. I love that he gets to choose the game that he plays to win the Bentley, and it's Monopoly.
Well, exactly. Well, that's what he does, whether it's actually in the signed contract. I think we find out later from when Aziraphale signs the contract that as the challenger, he's able to choose the game.
Exactly.
But I love the fact that in playing Monopoly, he says the aim of it is you've got to own everything and leave everyone penniless and crushed and miserable. And, you know, touche from Crowley, who says, sounds like a game only humans could invent.
Yeah.
And after being told he can then be the shoe. I like the little touch in here as well around signing the contract. Crowley, in a sense, loses the car because he's being threatened by Brian that he will either has to play this game, and if he doesn't play the game to decide whether he retains or loses the car, he'll actually burn down and set fire to the bookshop, which later on you see when him and Aziraphale's looking for his help to find Jesus. He's kind of like going, this is odd. There's maybe a bit of dust, but where are the rats and all this? And you realize Crowley lost Aziraphale. The only part of Crowley left on Earth was the bookshop.
Yeah.
And so he's been looking after it. And so this is a real important moment. He bet because otherwise the bookshop would be set fire.
Exactly. The only piece
and so it's a real nice touch here around this moment with Brian Cameron. I like that later on, Aziraphale says, what is the name? It sounds like an accountant, where he's this big gangster that only Sean Pertwee can do, and it's just really good. Yeah. So this is all sort of made the more rich for me because you have Sean Pertwee in this real little role, actually. I mean, whether it was more expanded or a little few more sort of times where we were with Brian Cameron as well as his daughter Misty Cameron and his muscle Mudge, but I just really enjoyed seeing these two together.
Absolutely. Like there's that farcical element that would have come into it, I'm sure, if we had the 6-episode show. You know, the idea is as we see later on, while Crowley and Aziraphale, these two angel and former demon, are working out this whole second coming and the new apocalypse, and they're working everything out. Suddenly the daughter of the local gangster comes in to interrupt them and thinks that her issue is way more important than whatever it is that they could possibly be talking about. That's the kind of farcical element that you would have seen if the show had expanded it out a bit more, right? It would have been right when you didn't expect it, when you have the battle between heaven and hell, and for the coming apocalypse, in walks the local gangster's daughter to tell you to take care of her dad and help him out and pay him back and give him the car back. That would have worked really well had we had a bit longer in the show. But as it is, at least we get to see our wonderful Sean Pertwee, the old Pennyworth from Gotham.
Oh, absolutely.
Back here in London.
I even really like that with Aziraphale, he chooses ultimately competitive cryptic crossword solving and wins hands down. But you get the sense of panic from Brian. He's like, he's on to his, doers, say, find the guy who wrote the cryptic crossword, threaten him if he doesn't give us all the answers.
Threaten his husband,
but that through that, Aziraphale gets the Bentley back so that they can go and find Jesus, effectively.
Yeah. Do you like that their mission here is to find Jesus? I think it's just a fun little gag. Throw away though it may be. But yes, we have the Bentley back in the possession. I also love that Aziraphale keeps referring to it as their Bentley or our Bentley over and over again, much to
Crowley, it's my Bentley. Exactly. There's a good little kind of gag around the Bentley and the stolen car and them sort of regaining it, and that's where you can see certain things being fleshed out. It's interesting that they've kept that element, because it feels like that's something that's why you would flesh something out if you wanted to tell a story, to add layers in. So I'm glad they retain that for this mini movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you could have easily done, as you say, it could have just been that Crowley's there with the Bentley at the beginning of the episode. You don't need any of this, really. But keeping in these minor characters makes it all the more fun, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yes.
Hopefully it'll get expanded on at some point in the future. Let's get on to our fourth sign of the apocalypse, which is really everything else that's going on in the episode, and who we learn is behind it all. That it's Michael who's unmaking the universe. Because there's lots of investigation that's going on here. I love that we have our character Muriel, who we first met as the Inspector Constable back in season 2, because she had no idea what she was doing, doesn't know humanity at all. And we find out that actually she was put in place by Michael to help the investigation of this lost Book of Life, because she would never be able to discover how it possibly had disappeared, and that's how she solves the problem while everybody else is solving the problem. We have Aziraphale taking a hilarious trip to hell on his point of investigation, because he thinks there's no possibility that an angel could do what is happening here, that an angel could be removing Seraphim from the world, or removing Metatrons, or removing the Book of Life. It has to be hell. So he goes undercover down to hell to find out what they know.
Yeah, that is one of the funniest moments of this finale, is just seeing Aziraphale as my Lord Archduke Slork the Vile, Master of the Secret Torments. The kind of semi-clown makeup and the nuances and the tics and how he's held and how he's just constructed by Michael Sheen is superb.
He's exceptional. And we know Michael Sheen has done so many amazing roles over his career. Aziraphale is just one of those amazing roles, but he's so vastly different from Aziraphale.
Yeah, but I tell you this now, I could see a series of this character from, an emissary from all the way downstairs. I think you could just see that as a little offshoot that would be fantastic. His go-to disguise when he needs to get into hell is this. I love that hell ultimately finds out his threatening war, because he's upended years and years of diplomacy between heaven and hell, in effectively sort of taking the Mickey out of Archduke Slorch. And I think even with Muriel, where she kind of comes into the restaurant along with Misty, Coleman, along with everyone else, I like how this all blends together, where you actually have Aziraphale and Crowley trying to discuss themselves, the two of them, what's happened. Because we have this, moment earlier in the alleyway where, in a sense, Crowley is not going to give him the apology that he's looking for. He wants to be forgiven for what he's done because he knows that what he did hurt him. He tries to pass it off with, well, I chose heaven because of you, because of what you said to me. And I like that as they're, he says, I want to show the upstanding choices and behavior. That's why I'm here. But ultimately he just gets brought in and captured by the dim sum, which is delightful. So you have this moment of them really trying to thrash out something quite intimate and personal between them, whilst then Muriel shows up going, I'm the useful idiot. And if that's the case, then and you just have Crowley going, we know.
It's Michael.
It's Michael. And then it's interrupted by Misty, and it's just a really nice pat. I love how interrupted by Dagon's demon about this is war and the breach in the preternatural diplomacy. There must be hurting and burning, and it's like, has there ever been anything useful come from hurting and burning? And it's just so lovely done in this Chinese restaurant as Aziraphale is kind of sort of melting into the dim sum, which is delightful. So I loved all this.
It was really, really good. I don't think we should forget that, remember, Crowley was the temptation demon in the Garden of Eden. When we first met him back at the beginning, he's the one that gave the apple to Adam and Eve.
Should have been dim sum.
Yeah, but that's effectively what he is doing here with Aziraphale. He's still that demon, even though he's a former demon. That is just a thing he does all the time. He sits you down in front of all your favorite things and gives you the option to choose whether you want to have them or not, effectively. So I do love that takes place over this dinner table as well. So really, really good. But yes, Michael has decided to do this. She is confronted by Uriel, and the reason she's decided to do it is because she wasn't on board with this plan of having universal peace, that she wanted the end of all things. She has never gotten thanked for all the things that she did over the centuries. She has, or over the millennia. 6,000 years, isn't it? So that's the joke in here that we see, that this particular universe was only created 6,000 years ago on the 21st of October at 9 a.m. 9:15 a.m. Sorry. But she is destroying the universe by effectively taking books out of the Book of Life, and once they are burnt, they will never have existed. So she keeps taking them one at a time.
Including air fryers that she destroys.
Including air fryers, yes.
Guess someone's had a bad moment with an air fryer.
Well, absolutely. And Australia, which just has
Canada.
Bouncing rats. But I love as it goes on, they take out hell. Hell thinks that they are poised to win the war against heaven, because all they need to do is get Jesus, and once they have Jesus, then they can go and battle heaven, and then they'll send the angels back to hell, and they open the door to leave hell and realize it's all coming down around them, effectively, because the apocalypse has reached hell. Then it reaches heaven. We have Aziraphale and Muriel left in heaven, and they start to disintegrate. And I do love that the television screen that they're watching of the planet Earth shows every single country on Earth except for Britain and Ireland left on the screen, and just in time, Aziraphale and Crowley confront Michael at the eternal flame at the center of the universe.
I do like that they use the Bentley to get to the eternal flame at the center of the universe, but because earlier they had hidden it and disguised it as an ice cream van, you have the ice cream cone and the ice cream still where the Bentley badge should be.
Yes.
Because it's not fully transformed back.
Right,
so I kind of like that
good little
touch.
gag. Yeah, good gag. And of course, the recurring gag of the only music that's played in the Bentley is from the Best of Queen, of course, which is how it was first introduced back in the book as well. But Michael's standing over the eternal flame and using it to burn each of the pages of the book, and eventually, even though she is forgiven by Aziraphale for what she's done, that's his final move to maybe save what's left of the universe, she can't forgive herself and burns her own page along with the entire book. So all is destroyed until Crowley reaches into the fire and takes out one last page, which is Aziraphale & Co., the bookshop, back on Wickborough Street. And the two of them appear back there.
Yeah. Well, we do actually get the forgiveness by Crowley of Aziraphale, maybe grudgingly slightly at least, but he does say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Aziraphale is kind of like, we have each other, and then he's kind of like going, we have all the books, we have Coco in the back. All this, it's all very cute. It's all very Coco. Cute, comfortable, and homely. It's being described by Aziraphale, but Crowley kind of says, we have nothing. And they open up all the books and they're just blank.
Did this remind you of something recently from The Boys with Sister Sage saying that this is exactly what she wanted, to just be surrounded by books, left alone by everybody else in the universe? And what Crowley realizes is what I was proposing would happen to Sister Sage, that she'd go blind or something like that. But here what happens is they find that all the books have also been erased, because if the entirety of human history has been erased, who's there to write the books? Not
even the Dickens. And I like how that is played out. You just have Aziraphale going, not even the Dickens.
Not even the Dickens, yes.
Which I thought was just really funny, because he repeats it again. And it's just, not even the Dickens.
Yes.
So I kind of like that little touch.
I used to have a teacher in school that used to say, what the Dickens?
Well, that's same here. What the Dickens?
It's such a strange exclamation, but yes. Yes, they aren't alone for long in the bookshop, though. Satan arrives.
We have Satan firstly arriving, who says, I don't know if I still have a job.
Mm-hmm.
I like that touch. I like the fact that he's kind of like almost trying to defend what he's done, what actually his reason for being is. He's like, well, I challenged God. And you just have Crowley saying, well, how did that work out?
Well,
you know, yes, I joined you, but like, what have you achieved ultimately?
But the bigger betrayal there for Crowley is that Satan told him that there was a chance of them winning, when actually Satan is just a part of the ineffable plan of God. God always knew that there would be an uprising. God always knew there would have to be the creation of hell, and that Crowley would have to fall. And by Crowley following Satan, he's taken down to hell with him. So he is so angry at Satan. It's just about under the surface here with this moment with this version of Satan, effectively. But Satan comes in and saying to him, you know, Crowley, we used to be friends. And he's going, no, we were never friends. I joined your side and you didn't tell me the truth.
I mean, the great thing is it's a real nice continuation through, because a bit earlier you do have that argument between Crowley and Aziraphale, where you have Crowley saying, you know, you can't change anything. There's always someone stacking the deck above you. And that's what we see here with Satan. It's like, he was taking Satan by his word, but actually Satan knew he could never get the better of God, because he is the adversary here. Whereas you have Aziraphale is like, well, I just wanted to save everything and everyone so that we would all have a chance, even us. So it is the classic glass half empty, glass half full kind of partnership here between the two, but it really comes to the fore from Crowley here as well, again, through how he's speaking to Satan. And then obviously you have, God summoned here by Aziraphale by writing the new Book of Life.
Absolutely. I love this idea that they can now write anything into the books and it becomes a manifest, because that's all that's left of the universe is the bookshop. So whatever they write is the new life, effectively. So they could have created it all if they wanted to. That could have been a way that they'd go. Also, like seeing Toby Jones here as Satan, and his reference to previous Satan being played by Benedict Cumberbatch back in season 1. Well, you saw me at my fiery, greatest, massive self. Now I'm not that same type. He just references the fact that it was a very different Satan that we saw back in season 1. But interestingly, Satan isn't really a part of this. When they discuss it with God, Aziraphale kind of indicates that Satan's there because, well, that makes for a good end to the story, right? Yeah. God's here to close the book on this universe. God's here to shut it down. But God's omnipresent, so she's been there the whole time, as she always would be. So by writing it down, they're able to make her manifest and make her appear.
The great thing that Toby Jones does here is he makes Satan more and more awkward. Mm-hmm. He's this all-powerful being when he first walks in, and very confident. Before you know it, he's kind of really... It's more that he's fidgeting and looking around. He's almost sort of starting to move into the background, because, as you say, it's actually God. I love the fact here, given, the writers here, that this is ultimately making a deal with God. It's a bit Kate Bush, and that kind of notion, where, Crowley wants answers, and the question is, why make people and then punish them for being people, which is such a great question to ask. It's not the problem of evil, which Satan seems to think it is. He's like, oh, you're just coming up with the problem of evil again. He says, no, it's the problem of everything, that you've created everything that can't fulfill itself. It's about having, sort of a real universe where people have the chance of free will, and a real chance where people have a real chance, is what he says. And free will is real, even if, again, and this is where he comes to say there's no angels, no demons, no us, when he speaks to Aziraphale about it. I love the love letter between the two of them here in this moment. When he's speaking with God, says, I just want to do what was right. And God says, well, you were the first angel to lie to me. But he says, well, I was the second best angel. Crowley was the best. Everyone else were characters to you, effectively, in God's book. He wasn't. He was an artist, this free thinker. He
asked questions to make things better, make things more real.
And you have Crowley's irreverence, really, in front of God, where he says, what was your reasoning to have a world to only stop it after 6,000 years? And I just really like here, then, that ultimately God grants Crowley his wish that he's discussed with Aziraphale.
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes right the way back to the beginning of the book. Effectively, Crowley has always questioned why humans are being tempted to do good or tempted to do bad when and are made with the possibility of doing extreme good and extreme bad, and are pushed in one direction or the other direction by this plan of God. He's always been the one that's questioned that. He's made Aziraphale question that since the beginning. The reason why he fell from heaven, as we saw at the beginning of the episode, was because he had questions that nobody would answer for him. Not Satan, not God, not the seraphim, not any of the other angels. He fell because he was asking questions that God didn't want answered, basically. So here he is finally getting his answer to a question. And the answer is, well, maybe we create a universe that doesn't have any of those deities, doesn't have any push on it, which I love. Yeah.
I love that God says, you're asking God to create a godless universe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Creation of a new universe with no heaven or hell, no angels or demons, no gods or devils, starts with a big bang. And I love how then that sort of, you go to the darkness, and then back to the explosion of life through the Big Bang, and it goes 13.8 billion years later.
Absolutely.
And it's just really, really good.
Yeah, it is really, really good. I also like that they describe this universe saying that it starts at the Big Bang and ends with a Heath death at some point in the future. But we're not sold in a Heath death. It doesn't have to end like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I thought was quite funny. Yeah. But yes, I think that moves us on to our final sign of the apocalypse, the fifth sign. I guess that the apocalypse has happened. Just the quote from Anthony Crowley, which is, I don't need more than this. That is our final farewell to not Aziraphale and Crowley, to Aziraphale and Anthony Crowley, or Dr. Anthony Crowley.
Yes.
Yeah. Lovely little moment here where we have Aziraphale now working for Derek Jacobi, the purveyor and owner of the bookshop, former Metatron. And Dr. Crowley comes in to look for a book, his own book. Reminds me of that Golden Pages ad from the 80s,
yes,
isn't it? Where the writer of the book is J.R.R. Hartley is looking for every copy of his book around the country by using the Golden Pages. Here we have Anthony Crowley walking into the bookshop looking for his own book, and Asa decides to discount it for him because he kind of likes the look of him. But that kind of offends Dr. Crowley, since he doesn't need the book discounted because he has boxes and boxes of them. But yeah, a nice little push from Derek behind the counter saying, well, he obviously likes you and you obviously like him. Why don't you go and ask him out to dinner?
Yeah.
Love it.
Absolutely. It's just, I think, a really nice, I like the fact that Derek Jacobi sets them up here to, as you say, to tells, Aziraphale to go after Anthony Crowley, Professor Anthony Crowley, to get him to sign his book.
Yes,
and
he's an astrophysicist because he's the one that used to create universes when he was an angel. Nice little touch there, but of course, Aziraphale's always going to be in a bookshop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's just a really nice, he says, no, I'm not going to give you my number, but I'll wait, and we'll go get dinner. And you have a lovely moment in the bar with everyone there.
Yeah.
And I think the ending is just really great, really poignant, as they're sat stargazing
20 years later.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I have everything I need. I have the universe there, and I have you here. So it's just really, really good.
Really nice, yeah.
I must say, it's a really sort of touching little ending for me.
It is.
I loved the bar scene with everyone there. I think that's a nice little touch as well. Seeing Jesus, Harry Fish, you see Dagon, you see all the different people there. Michael's there as well. Yeah.
And I did notice a little blink and you miss a cameo. I was wondering why they did this. The actor who plays Jesus, Bilal Hasna, is picking up a pint from the bar and there's a guy beside him and the two of them just kind of give each other a nod and then go off and chat at a table. That other actor, so interestingly, that's Sam Taylor Buck, who played Adam in season 1, the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Little baby Antichrist. So I love that they were able to get this cameo. It's a real blink and you miss, a very quick one. But the two of them, the Antichrist and the second coming of Jesus, sitting down for a pint together. I think that's a really cute idea, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really, really good. Yeah.
And then the final little touch is a massive portrait of Terry Pratchett in the pub to say goodbye to Terry, who gave so much to this book and this series as well in the creation of the characters. So lovely little touches. And I think this is probably my favourite section of the episode, the fact that we do get a goodbye to these two characters and we get them living out their lives together. Exactly as we'd wanted, but not exactly as Aziraphale and Crowley.
No, exactly.
Or not exactly, yes.
Well, quite, yeah. But yeah, so it's a really nice little wrap up here, I think.
Yeah. That is our signs of the apocalypse. Is there anything else? There's probably loads from the episode that we could mention. Anything else that you want to mention, John, that we haven't talked about at all?
No, I don't think there's anything from me. I'm sure, yes, I've probably missed tons here, but I think what I needed to say around this, I think the wit, the emotion, just sort of the reality and genuineness of these characters and the ensemble in general is just really, really well played.
It is.
I think the choices here, and it's been through all 3 seasons of the show, it has been absolutely spot on to the spirit of Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman here. So yeah, I mean, for me, this would be 5 big bangs out of 5.
Oh, all right.
I think, I mean, yes, would I have liked 6 episodes? Yes. Well, yes and no. I would be a little bit Janus, the two-faced god there, because otherwise it'd be 6 weeks rather than just one day of doing it. Yes. But, so that, there is kind of a...
hard to fit things in at the moment.
It's hard to fit things in at the moment. So it's been quite convenient. It's been one kind of long hour and a half, but I've really loved these characters all the way through since season 1.
Yeah.
it's great having them back again. I love the touch, as you say, with Adam and Jesus having the pint together. It's just really well done. I think the choices, the style, the tone, the pitch of everything is fantastic. And, you know, is both, it feels both comfortable and warm, like Aziraphale's notion of Coco at the end of the apocalypse. But it's also challenging and subversive with actually what it's talking about and the themes that it has. Yeah. And in that, you have to say, it's an absolute triumph,
right?
I think.
Interesting.
No, I mean the whole season. And I think it's, as I say, I would have loved to have 6 episodes, but alas, we get an hour and a half, and we have to be thankful for that.
I'd say that as well. You know, that's one of the things I mentioned up front, the promise that was there by having a second season, because a lot of fans like myself, if you listen back to my thoughts at the end of season 1, I think they did an amazing translation of one of my favorite books into a 6-episode show. And I went, they'll never do a sequel to this. And it was announced about 6 weeks later that they were doing a sequel. But the promise at the time was, we're doing a second season so that we can get to a 3rd season and have an ending for these 2 characters that are so beloved by everybody. And they didn't, unfortunately, get to achieve this 3rd season that they wanted to. I have to say, in this show, I think some of the choices that they made to leave things in and take things out were so odd and unusual. It's still fun. I've watched this now 3 times and I've enjoyed scenes every time. It's more enjoying watching these actors work together more than enjoying the perfectly crafted finale to the show.
They sell it well.
Yeah.
They sell it absolutely so well because of how good Michael Sheen and David Tennant are.
Absolutely.
You know, you have to give them props. And surrounded by exceptional supporting cast. Yeah. That can turn what other people might portray as something nonsensical into something really meaningful.
Yeah, but I would absolutely love to have seen more of the characters like Jesus. I'd love to have seen his time with Harry the Fish a bit more. Yeah. I'd love to have seen a bit more of Sean Pertwee, even though he got a good portion of the story, which didn't need to be there necessarily. I'd say somebody else would have been out with the scissors cutting that and putting it on the cutting room floor, but it's Sean Pertwee. You can't do that, right?
Absolutely. But we can always see more Jesus in our hearts.
We just need to go out and find Jesus and get a Bentley and drive to the center of the universe. But it was lovely. And just one little note that I had, I love that the last song in the episode is a Course Queen, and it's You're My Best Friend, which makes total sense for these 2 characters as it flies off into the galaxy. And I also love that Crowley hears a nightingale over their garden. If you remember, the first season ended with the Nightingale song from Tori Amos. Yes. Second season we had Nightingale as well at the end of that season, and here we have Crowley hearing a nightingale over the garden. And I love that he gets a little gentle ribbing from Aziraphale saying, you wouldn't know a nightingale at all. And he's going, well, it's not an owl and it is night. I've heard the singing. So, you know, it's still that lovely relationship with the 2 of them. So a nice way to close it out. And one final note I meant to mention, just something that I noticed when I was rereading Good Omens after watching the finale, is that the initial arrival of the Antichrist in the first book was dealt with as the same kind of game, the 3-card Monty or the Find the Queen. They actually describe it in the book just like that they're trying to hide who is the Antichrist, and they name it's Baby A, Baby B, and the Antichrist, Bringer of Death, is the 3rd card, effectively, and they're shuffling them around, and you can't tell where the baby goes to. That's where Adam gets lost in the British countryside instead of going to the American foreign minister, which is just a great little touch. So they brought that through into the 3rd season here, into the finale here, as the game that Jesus is learning to connect with people, which I just think is quite fun.
Yeah, I like that kind of notion of them just circling back to a little motif used previously.
Little synergy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good stuff. Another lovely way to close our podcast out there, John, is some feedback from our wonderful fellow angels and demons.
Absolutely.
First up, Coffee and Vodka had some thoughts on this final episode. He says, "Greetings, fellow End of Days defenders. A sweet, if truncated, final trip down deserted Soho Avenue. You can see the shortcuts which had to be taken, reducing a full season down to a single long farewell episode, most notably replacing a full blow-by-blow apocalypse with a MacGuffin book and an eternal flame. Still, this held all the same charm, giving the people what we wanted, a happily ever after ending for Crowley and Aziraphale, and seeing Sean Pertwee again was priceless. Finally, perfect castings for Jesus, God and Satan in all respects. My MVP for the finale is shared out to the writing team of Pratchett, R.I.P., Gaiman and Smith. Any standout moments for you guys? 4.5 endless pizzas, missing messiahs, and merciless Michaels out of 5. Peace and take care, Coffee and Vodka." Thanks, Coffee and Vodka. Quite a few standout moments, as you probably heard in our discussion on the episode. Great to hear your thoughts on it, though.
Yes, absolutely. Coffee and Vodka. I like the endless pizzas. I think that would be much better than loaves and fish.
Absolutely.
But I wonder if it was a pizza that had anchovies on it.
It would have been very funny if they did make a comment on that. I know Jesus mentions something about the best cheese and bread in the world. So,
yeah. Well, that's it. I thought he was going to start giving sort of toasted ham sandwiches because of the gift that he gets given straight off after he lands back on Earth. I think for me, lots of standout moments for me, Coffee and Vodka. Mm-hmm. I'm certainly with you around seeing Sean Pertwee again. I really enjoy Sean Pertwee as an actor in terms of what he's done in the past. Obviously, we've covered him on Gotham TV podcasts.
And met him a few times.
And met him a few times. And we interviewed him back in the day. And so, but he's someone that's been always very genuine, and his craft looks like with Michael Sheen and with David Tennant that it comes across so easy. Mm-hmm. But he is really, really good. It's a shame we just hear him on MasterChef.
That's all we hear, at the moment.
His little dulcet tones. Yeah. It was actually good to see his face and connect it to the voice in this show.
Absolutely. I did love the little meme that was going around, which had the picture of him and Crowley side by side, and went, "All I see here is the third Doctor and the 10th Doctor." So hopefully Sean Pertwee will eventually take on the reins of the Doctor from his father and have a little moment where he plays him on screen. That would be kind of cool too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thanks, Coffee and Vodka.
Thanks, Coffee and Vodka. Over on Discord, Felipe Gurgle says, "Sad that this show could not have the full third season to complete its story. I love the chemistry between Tennant and Sheen, and I think that they deserved more time. In the end, it felt rushed, but at least they were given the chance to give us a finale instead of just cancelling it due to the author's scandals." Mm-hmm. Thanks so much, Felipe. Totally agree. I think it's just really good to get what we got rather than it suddenly being cut short. I think in a lot of cases, it could be an argument to say we could have just left it at the end of season 1. But ultimately, a season 2 did come. It's a shame they couldn't sort of crescendo it with a full season for season 3 because, yes, there are scandals that have come out around Neil Gaiman, but he was part of a duo here, and Terry Pratchett equally deserves to have this put on the TV as well. Yeah.
His estate took over the reins. They were fully in charge of this. Neil Gaiman stepped away. He does have credits on there, but he has to have them. He was a writer involved in the show, but he stepped away from it, doesn't get any money out of it. He was giving this as a gift to the fans of the show. And you're right. I'm glad. The only option really is either to have this episode or to have finished it at the end of season 1. And since they did a season 2, we had to have some way of closing it out. I'm glad we got something. So moving at the end as well, the last 10 minutes is great.
I mean, because as well, the curation by these platforms of a lot of stuff is horrific. Mm-hmm. We've seen it with, movies and so on. Yep. So at least they kept this one going. But how soon it may or may not drop off, who knows? But it's great that we got something.
Exactly. Thanks, Philippe. And finally, on Discord, Teresa says, "It's a shame John Hamm didn't make it back for the final episode. His Gabriel was my highlight of every scene he was in season 2. The movie itself was okay, although I did love the last 10 minutes or so. A universe where Crowley and Aziraphale grow old together is both touching and heartwarming." Good final words there, Teresa.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Teresa, for those. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen John Hamm back in. I really enjoyed him in season 2.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it was nice to see him. But again, if you're going to cut anything, he had a definitive ending at the end of season 2. True. He went off with his partner. So, bringing him back, it maybe as a flashback to something that happened earlier on in the show, maybe he would have appeared if Jesus was remembering, him talking about himself, over Jesus, But, I think it makes sense not to have him in the show. And those last 10 minutes were fantastic. Thank you so much to all of you who've joined us over the last couple of years on our Good Omens podcast. Remember, you can, of course, join us for any of the other shows that we're covering over in tvpodcastindustries.com. You can subscribe on any godly or devilish podcast player over there. Coming up with 1,000 episodes, as I mentioned, with loads and loads of shows that we're covering. Some one-offs, some long series, some 7 or 8 season runs as well. But if you have enjoyed the podcast, we love if you would share it as well, because sharing our podcast is sharing the love of our ineffable husbands as well. Yes.
Our ineffable relationship.
Yes. And I also want to say a huge thanks to Jason Kabasi and Podcastica.com, who gave us the opportunity to share this podcast over on Podcastica as well, and have done so all the way back to the start of Good Omens as well. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
And right on the borderline of closing down our Good Omens podcast, as I'm finishing the editing, we got a piece of feedback in from the wonderful Dr. Bob Phillips, who will have to, of course, share his thoughts. John?
Yes, Dr. Bob says, to circle back through all the stories of the world to come to define the point of the universe as Aza and Tony falling in love again, and presumably again and again, because they choose knowledge and freedom for people to decide their destiny through the brandy glass of Pratchett, was a most beautiful way to salute the co-author and his indomitable humanism. Mm-hmm. The show always seems to have taken a swipe at religiosity, lightheartedly, but embrace generosity and love in all its forms. Very nicely executed. Absolutely agree completely here with you, Dr. Bob, that, this notion of multiple viewpoints that can live harmoniously, I think is something that unfortunately is being lost. And I think in a world of today, I think this does stand out as something that is both light-hearted, but also accepting of all other forms of isms in that sense. Totally think your feedback is really, really on point. Thank you.
Absolutely. So glad we caught that. Thanks so much, Dr. Bob. And thanks everybody once again for your feedback.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for joining us. We'll speak to you again on another show.
Yeah, absolutely, fellow angels and demons. Great to get your thoughts on this finale of Good Omens. But until our next outing in the world of the supernatural, wherever that may be, but remember, keep watching, keep listening, and the apocalypse is coming. Grab your hard hat, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.